With 2017 being over, I took the time to film my top 10 favorite films of the year, and you can find that in a separate video. But this one, it's time to take you through the other half of the year, and that is the worst, or the least favorite, or most disappointing films that I saw in 2017. I have a feeling this will be a very interesting list, just like my top 10 favorite films of the year. So again, if you haven't checked that out, you'll have to check that out after watching this video. But right now, let's dive into the worst films that I saw in 2017. And I have 2 honorable mentions before we get to the worst. And in the 2 honorable mention categories, we have Call Me By Your Name and Justice League. I know, very odd films to have as my 2, I'll call them dishonorable mentions of 2017. And I'm just gonna leave you with that. And we have 10 other films to get through. And in my number 10 spot, we have Murder on the Orient Express. And this one broke my heart to include on the list. And that is because it's not a bad film. It has a great first act. No, it has a great first third. But given the cast, given the director, given the story, and how rich the visuals were, I was expecting a lot more from this film. But unfortunately, this train derailed in the last 2/3 of the film. I feel like it struggled in adapting the story successfully and clearly. I walked out of this film wondering if I had dozed off during some key scenes to help explain the plot, and I didn't. I feel like it wasn't a smooth adaptation with how strong the star power and the crew was for this film. And the story, I love a good murder mystery. I was expecting a lot more from this film, and I was unfortunately disappointed. In my number 9 spot, I have Bad Moms Christmas, and this film was a perfect example of a film that I felt like was rushed way too quickly through production post the first film to get this one out a year later. Bad Moms was just out in 2016, and it did exceptionally well for a good reason. I loved Bad Moms, and it's so unfortunate that Bad Moms Christmas, the sequel, has to be in my list of worst, because I feel that the humor was lacking. It had some funny moments, but not nearly as many as the first one. I felt that the mothers of the moms in this one, so the grandmas, they kind of stole the show, and I walked out of this movie kind of wanting a bad grandmas movie. Given with how strong the first one was with Bad Moms and Bad Moms Christmas, I was just so disappointed. In the number 8 spot, we have Battle of the Sexes, starring Emma Stone and Steve Carell. And this is another perfect example of a film that really should not have been as disappointing as it was. And I blame a major part of why this film did not succeed very well on the marketing. The marketing of this film definitely played up the rivalry between Emma Stone and Steve Carell's character, and they played up the comedic aspects of this story. But what this film turned out to be, instead of a quick-paced, smart dramedy but about the rivalry between Emma Stone and Steve Carell, it's mostly about Emma Stone in her romance and in her lesbian relationship. Steve Carell, although they promote the both of them on the poster, he is definitely in a supporting role, and I felt that was misleading. I definitely enjoyed their chemistry way more than Emma Stone and her lover's chemistry, which took more of the central story, and the movie itself turned out to be a bit more of a drama and less of a comedy, and so the marketing was very misleading. I was disappointed by this film. And in the number 7 spot, we have Cars 3. And it's really not much of a shocker that Cars 3 made this list, because, to be perfectly honest, do you really give 2 shits about Cars anymore? Like, really? Do we really care about the Cars franchise in Pixar? I feel that Cars is the only series of films by Pixar where they've actually missed the mark. The first Cars was, I thought, cute. I didn't even bother seeing the second Cars, if I'm being honest with you. The reviews were stronger for Cars 3 than Cars 2, and they were playing up more a little bit of the nostalgia behind Lightning McQueen's character sort of accepting that it's his time to retire and sort of pass the baton on to someone else. And I was thinking, maybe this film could surprise me, because the first one did have some good moments. And I went in maybe hoping that they were able to capture some of that for this one. And they had a couple moments, but honestly, it was just a bland children's movie that really didn't tug at any of my heartstrings, really. And I'm really hoping that this was the end. We really don't need any more cars. In my number 6 spot, we have King Arthur. I mean, did anyone love this movie? This is such wasted opportunity, honestly. I feel like the cast was decent, but I don't know if I would have cast Charlie Hunnam in the role, as beautiful as he is and nice to look at on screen. I don't know. I didn't quite buy him as Arthur. Maybe that's a script, maybe that's the director, or maybe it's the very, very unrealistic 21st century haircut he had back then. I mean, come on, let's get real. It was just bland, honestly. It felt two-dimensional. It wasn't engaging. It didn't really make me care about any of the characters. The visuals were fine, and I feel like the story has promise. Whatever. I'm never gonna see it again. And in my number 5 spot, we have Rough Night. Rough Night is the type of movie that I think wanted to be the next Bridesmaids, but failed miserably. It's also one of those movies that showed all of its funniest moments in the preview. I will continue to love the preview of Rough Night to this day. I will continue to watch the preview every once in a while if I want a good laugh, because that's all you need to watch in order to laugh at this movie, because the rest of it is not that funny. It was a wasted opportunity with some exceptional actors. I expected so much better, and this story can be a very funny story, but it really just wasn't a funny movie. That's why Rough Night has definitely earned the number 5 spot on this list. In my number 4 spot, we have Baywatch, and this movie was just stupid. It really was, and I think it tried to take itself a little bit too seriously on the action adventure front, and it really didn't push the comedy nearly as much as they could have. It had a couple moments, a lot of penis jokes, but it really was just stupid. It bombed in all regards, so who thought that this was gonna be good? It wasn't. And in my number 3 spot, we have Valerian, City of a Thousand Planets. I think that's the full title, Valerian. I don't give a shit. I understand that this movie is probably a lot more enjoyable if you're high off your rocker, but I was sober as a nun when I saw this movie. Valerian was nothing but pretty visual effects with 2 very bland, semi-unlikable leads, or miscast leads in their roles. I mean, I feel like Valerian could have potential to be a very well-done, large, epic, space Avatar-esque adventure. The whole approach and structure behind this film was just bad. The story itself just got weird, and I remember sitting there, and again, I didn't go in with high expectations for this film because reviews were not that great. The visuals were fine, but again, it didn't give me hardly anything to care about because the 2 leads were just so bland, and I couldn't get behind it. All right. We're getting down to my top 2, and these 2 battled it out for being the worst films of the year. But in my number 2 spot, we have The Snowman, starring Michael Fassbender and Rebecca Ferguson. And a number of you might not even know what the fuck this film is. I think a number of people I mentioned this film to or spoke about this film to, they didn't know what it was. No one knows. And, I mean, you're not missing anything. I heard that this film actually did not get around to shooting 10% of its script, which is unheard of to me. Who doesn't shoot 10% of the script? Unless they're scrapping the script, it's just, you're not finishing it. And that actually made sense after watching this film, because I felt like there were so many open-ended things yet to explore or explain after this film was over. It's very forgettable, honestly. It's such a forgettable movie, and a very incomplete movie. And I don't really have anything redeeming to say about it. And in my number 1 spot, worst film I saw in 2017 was The Circle, starring Emma Watson and Tom Hanks. I struggled to find out what the point of this film really was. And it's unfortunate because they had a really strong cast of people behind this film. The Circle presented a concept that was interesting, but I felt like, were they struggling to figure out where this was going or what message they're trying to tell people? This movie portrayed itself as a bit of a suspense thriller, and there's only one, I guess, suspenseful, thrilling moment in the entire movie. Like, one incident in the entire movie. Come the fuck on. And the rest of it is kind of boring, and honestly, I feel like Emma Watson's American accent was very distracting in this movie. It didn't present any clear message as to what the point of this film was, especially with the last scene. I'm not going to give away spoilers, but once the credits start rolling, I'm sitting there thinking, okay, so what? So something happened in the scene prior to that, but that's how it ends? Like, what was the point of that? I feel like what happens there in the end contradicts what happened in the scene prior. It's just baffling. And the thing is, I don't even know if the writers even knew what they were wanting to convey. I don't know. I feel like this movie had no direction. So there you have it, everyone. Those were what I feel like were the most disappointing and or worst films of 2017. Do you agree with me on some of them? Or are you infuriated by my opinion? I'd be very curious to hear your thoughts and opinions below. 2017 was definitely a very colorful year in film. Be sure to check out my list of my top 10 favorite films of 2017, where I talk about everything wonderful that came out of 2017. But like life, there is a healthy balance of both, and you just got your mix of the worst. Thank you all for watching, and I'm Ryan Bamey, and I'm signing off. Bye, everyone.